dead, bro. I'm about to die.
You got shot before.
Yeah.
Damn, bro. I always wanted to get shot.
Huh?
I always wanted to, just to feel what it, just in my leg or something. I never wanted to take something in the chest, you know?
Crazy, bro.
But I always wanted to
You gotta
feel.
be careful what you wish for, dog.
Yeah, maybe we'll take that part out, bro. That might be a lot.
Yeah.
That is a Queens rapper named YP to YG sitting in an interview chair, alive and laughing about bullets. Not long after he said those words, he was found shot in the head inside his own family home, killed by his own blood. And the person who pulled the trigger was somebody he grew up with.
Introduce yourself.
YP to YG, you already know, South Jamaica, Queens, Sufton Bullies, 5 block on. We all in gang.
Okay, YP to YG. Are you related to YG?
No, not at all, not at all.
So how does a man go from that chair to a body on the floor of a house that was about to be sold? And why did the people closest to him have to be the ones to end it? Hold that thought, because we are coming right back to it. But before we get into YP to YG's story, we have to start with this one, because it is the same sickness wearing a different face. Somewhere in Prince George's County, Maryland, there is a modest little single-family home on Hill Road, the kind of house where 3 generations lived under one roof and everybody knew everybody's business. Listen to the woman who lived in that house try to explain a dead body to a homicide detective.
She calls on me for everything.
I don't know whose body it is. I don't know who else's body would be in the house.
The woman speaking is Candace Raquel Craig, and she was 44 years old when she said that, and the body she was pretending not to recognize belonged to her own mother. To understand how a daughter ends up saying a sentence like that with a straight face, you have to understand the woman she was talking about, because Margaret Craig deserves to be more than the last few minutes of her life. Margaret E. Craig was born on October 11, 1951, and she was 71 years old when everything fell apart. The family called her Auntie Joyce. She had survived more than one stroke, she needed help with her medication and her walking, and she managed a colostomy bag every single morning just to get through the day. So her whole world had shrunk down to a few rooms and a phone that rang whenever family remembered to call. Prosecutors would later describe her as a hard-working woman who worked hard all her life, a giving and caring person who was living on her pension and her Social Security, and who kept giving to the people around her even when those same people were quietly draining her dry. The person who was supposed to be taking care of her was her own daughter. Candace had been living in that home and was set up as Margaret's caregiver, which meant she cooked the meals, handled the pills, and answered when her mother knocked on the wall for help. On paper, it looked like love. In reality, prosecutors said Candace was not really caring for her mother at all. She was running a scheme built on top of a sick woman, and the whole household was leaning on Margaret's retirement money, while Margaret's own accounts were being emptied out from the inside. There was a third person in that house who matters to this whole story, and her name is Celia Hardy. Celia was 19 years old. She was Candace's oldest daughter and Margaret's granddaughter, and the court would later hear that she has developmental disabilities and learning issues that made her easy to lead and easy to control, especially by the one person she trusted most, her mother. Keep Celia in your mind, because she is the reason the whole world eventually found out what happened, and she is also the person who was handed the most unforgivable job a child could ever be given. Now, here is where the money comes in, because the money is the match that lit all of this. Margaret started noticing that her bank account was bleeding. Strange charges were showing up, things like DoorDash and Lyft, services she had never used in her life. And being the kind of woman who worked her whole life for what little she had, she did the responsible thing and she called her own bank to report it. A team of forensic accounting students from the University of Maryland would later pull this whole thing apart for the jury, and what they found was ugly. They matched the money leaving Margaret's accounts to the money landing in Candace's, and they even flagged a $211 pair of collectible sneakers bought off her dying mother's dime. You have to understand what that house had become in those final months, because the neglect was part of the crime. Relatives who came by to check on Margaret described a home that had turned dark and dirty, with strong odors and trash bags scattered around. One relative, a cousin's daughter named Jillian Filbert, later testified that Margaret had recently fallen down the basement stairs, which tells you just how fragile she had become, and that when Jillian visited the home, she caught a strong smell in the basement, saw trash bags everywhere, and left feeling uneasy after she noticed Candace and Celaya watching her a little too closely. Everybody on the outside felt that something was off, but nobody could see how deep the wrong actually went until it was far too late. The cruelest detail of all came out of those bank records. There were phone calls to the same bank about the same account, but two different women were making them. In some of the calls, a younger woman was pretending to be Margaret so she could approve the charges, and in others, the real Margaret was calling in frightened and confused, trying to flag those same charges as theft. The thief and the victim were fighting over the same account on the same phone line, and only one of them knew a war was happening. That phone call, an old woman trying to protect the little bit of money she had left, is close to the last free thing Margaret Craig ever did on her own. Because by the night of May 23, 2023, Margaret was dead, and the argument that killed her was about exactly that. Celaya later told the court the whole thing in the plainest words you can imagine, and her version lines up with the charging documents word for word. Watch her lay out the motive with no dressing on it at all.
The star witness has been Craig's daughter, Celia Hardy. She testified her grandmother caught Craig stealing her money, telling the court, quote, "Grandma said, 'Get out. I'm going to call police,' and that's why she did it." She told of a failed attempt to burn the grandmother's body whole and how her mother then ordered an electric chainsaw to cut the body to pieces.
"Get out. I'm going to call the police," and that's why she did it. Margaret found out. Margaret threatened to make it real, and instead of facing the consequences, Candace made sure her mother could never pick up that phone again. The charging documents put it just as coldly that Margaret threatened to report her daughter for the fraudulent use of her credit card, and the defendant then attacked her. That is the whole reason. A woman lost her life over a stolen card and a phone call she never got to make. What is wild is that even after all of this, when the police finally sat Candace down to ask about her missing mother, she kept the mask on. She played the worried, devoted caregiver, telling the detective her mother had wandered off before and would turn up. But little pieces kept slipping out. She volunteered, without even being pushed, that she was the one who controlled her mother's Capital One account, and all the recent transactions on it had been made by her, handing the detective the financial motive on a silver platter while she thought she was just explaining a missing person.
In the last 4 or 5 days, any normal transactions?
She has not made none. She doesn't have a credit card, so it's nothing. And she can't remember her passwords. Her book, where she has all her passwords, was on the bed.
Like what kind of account?
Capital One.
So she got Capital One.
Yes.
And you haven't noticed any transactions on her Capital One card?
The only transactions that was made, that I made them, she didn't make anything.
She spun a whole story about a mother who liked to grill dinner and bring food to her room, a normal domestic evening. And the more specific she got, the deeper the hole she was digging, because that grill was about to become the most damaging detail of her entire life. She sat there calm as anything, a woman who had already done the unthinkable, chatting with a homicide detective like they were talking about the weather. What happened after Margaret died is the part that turns this from a killing into something that stays with you for years. Celaya said she was in the basement that night when she heard her grandmother scream from another room, and when she asked what that was, her mother told her something had fallen in the basement and told her not to go into Margaret's bedroom. The next day, home alone and worried, Celaya went into that room anyway, and she found her grandmother's body stuffed inside a blue plastic storage bin with a trash bag pulled over the head, blood soaked into the carpet underneath.
What is kind of fill me into what's going on?
My daughter saw her on Tuesday. She said she was in the bathroom dumping her colostomy bag, and she her grandma come out her room, and then she went out the front door.
Yeah, we going to her. Was she okay? Like, was it? I had to check on her to let her know I was going to her. Where was she at? She was laying down. In her room? Yeah. When you said you checked on her, was something wrong with her? No, I guess she was just...
There were smaller, colder details around the edges of that night that show just how calculated the cover-up was. Before Celia ever found the body, Candace had already cut up the bloody carpet from the bedroom, bagged it, and dumped it in a dumpster over at an IHOP.
We don't go back and forth about, like, you know, or we'll go to your mom and be like, okay, well, your daughter said this, but that doesn't make sense. We would let your mom tell her story, and then after she's finished telling us, like, we'll ask questions, and like, hey, so you didn't smell a body in the basement, and then we leave it at that. And then we just talk at the table, and that's it. Yesterday when I was washing clothes, I did smell something, but I don't know what type of smell that was. It was just, you never smelled it before? No, it just a bad smell. It just stunk? Yeah, it's like the whole basement living room just stunk. And I realized the carpet was gone. Did you have carpet there before? Okay, and it just disappeared? Yeah.
She showed her daughter scratches on her own chest and arms, marks that prosecutors said came from the struggle with Margaret, but she still would not say straight out what had happened. And in one of the most telling moments of all, she told Celia that if she went to jail, Celia needed to look out for her younger sisters, which is a strange thing to say about a mother who supposedly just wandered off, and a clear sign that Candace already knew exactly how much trouble she was in. Instead of calling for help, Candace turned to her 19-year-old daughter and made her part of the cover-up. She told Celia they had to destroy the evidence, and she laid out the options in the most chilling way a mother could ever speak to a child, that they needed to get rid of the body by using acid, burning it, or chopping it up. They drove to Home Depot together and bought charcoal, a lighter stick, and a red gas can, filled the can at a gas station, and then Candace fired up the grill out back and put her own mother's remains on it to burn. To hide the smell of what she was doing from the neighbors, she cooked chicken on that same grill, and when the fire got out of control and the neighbors came running, she told them it was just a tire that had caught fire. One of those neighbors ended up testifying about the strange little scene in that backyard, the setup that looked like an ordinary cookout to anyone who did not know what was really cooking. Listen to how normal it looked from the outside.
A neighbor back then describing what she witnessed.
They even had like a little table with one of the umbrellas. They had that out there. They had the grill, and then they had, the charcoal.
A table, an umbrella, a grill, and charcoal. The picture of a summer afternoon, except the smoke rising off of it was a woman who raised the person tending the flames. When burning the body whole did not work, Candace moved to the next horror. She ordered an electric chainsaw off of Amazon in Margaret's own name days after Margaret was already dead, and the next morning she used it in the basement to take her mother apart.
I was going through my Amazon orders, and I saw she ordered a chainsaw. On what day was this? I gotta look back on the orders. Was it this week though? Yeah, it was this week. Okay. I know she ordered a chainsaw, and I was asking like, what is it for? She didn't want to tell me.
Celia said she heard the saw running, got so sick that she vomited, and then came down to see her grandmother already in pieces on the floor. When they finally asked this young woman on the stand why on earth she went along with any of it, her answer was 4 words that explain her entire childhood. Because my mother asked me. The detail that Celia carried to that witness stand is the one that will make your stomach drop, because it shows how calm Candace stayed the whole time. And it did not even stop there. Celia also told the courtroom about where some of those remains ended up sitting inside the home, like it was leftovers. One of the heaviest moments in the whole case came from Celia herself, sitting in that interrogation room, scrolling through her own phone. She pulled up her Amazon history and found the order for that chainsaw sitting right there in the account, placed in her dead grandmother's name after her grandmother was already gone. Nobody planted that on her. No detective accused her of anything. She discovered the evidence with her own hands in the very room where her grandmother had been killed, and she did not even try to explain it away. The financial trail was just as damning, because in the days after the killing there were fresh charges on Margaret's cards, including a run to Home Depot for around $126 of supplies tied to the very tools used to hide the crime. The whole point of keeping Margaret's death a secret was so the benefit money would keep flowing, so Candace could keep pretending her mother was alive and collecting. The whole thing only came apart because family on the outside would not stop asking questions. Margaret's nephew, David Wilson, used to talk to her all the time on Facebook Messenger about the news, and when days went by with no answer, he got worried enough to push for a welfare check. On June 2, 2023, at around 1:35 in the afternoon, Prince George's County officers came to that house, and Candace opened the door and let them in like she had nothing to hide, even telling them her mother had a habit of running away. But the smell reached the officers before they even got downstairs, and in that basement they found blood and tissue on the floor near 3 white trash bags, one of them open with what looked like brain matter, a knife, and a chainsaw with human remains still on it. When the case finally reached trial in the fall of 2024, the medical examiner, Dr. Pamela Ferreira, gave testimony that no one in that room will ever forget. She called it a unique case because the victim did not even arrive to her office in one piece, and the local reporting laid out exactly how bad it was. Listen to the reporter walk through what the examiner had to work with.
So the medical examiner really called this a, quote, unique case simply because the victim in this case, her body was not intact by the time it arrived to the medical examiner's office. In fact, the medical examiner testified that the body was in 9 bags, to be specific, and she said that there was 67 fragments of remains that were examined. Bottom line, as you know, with these medical examiners and these autopsies, you typically find out whether it was blunt force trauma, a shooting, a stabbing, something that led to this death. She says that she did not determine any of that. There was no evidence of natural disease that caused his death, so ultimately it was ruled a homicide by undetermined causes.
9 nested bags, 67 separate pieces, some of it burned and some of it cut by a saw. And the examiner told the jury she could find no evidence that any natural disease had killed Margaret, which is how the death got ruled a homicide by undetermined means.
Allegedly killed and dismembered by her daughter and granddaughter. It's a case that is stopping everyone in their tracks.
Burned and dismembered her body into more than 67 pieces.
The defense tried to build reasonable doubt on the fact that the body was too destroyed to name the exact fatal blow. They pointed to some unidentified male DNA at the scene and a live-in boyfriend named Benny. And they even floated the idea that Margaret might have taken her own life or that a stranger did it. But the jury was not buying any of it. They deliberated for a little over an hour and convicted Candace Craig on every single count on November 1st, 2024.
In a case that really rocked this entire region. This was a case of a mother who was also a grandmother who was senselessly killed by her daughter, her own daughter. And in court this week, you heard testimony from Candace Craig's own daughters, who, in 2 cases, she had accused of being responsible for this crime.
Salia was treated differently, and most people who followed the case understood why. She pleaded guilty to accessory after the fact, and in December of 2024, she was sentenced to time served, roughly 550 days, plus 5 years of supervised probation, with the judge and prosecutors leaning hard on her disabilities and how easily her mother had used her. As for Candace, in February of 2025, Judge Karen Mason sentenced her to life in prison with no possibility of parole, while one prosecutor told the court the crime was beyond the realm of words and the kind of thing that happens in movies and books, not in real life. The judge did not hide how the whole thing sat with her either, describing the case as something so unimaginable and telling Candace that only she truly knew what happened in that house. One woman was gone, another was buried alive in a cell for the rest of her days, and all of it started with a stolen credit card and a phone call to a bank. Now we come back to the man we opened with, because his story runs on the same fuel as Margaret's: family and money and a house, except his ending played out with a gun instead of a chainsaw. His government name was Prince McFarland, but everybody in the Queens rap scene knew him as YP to YG, and to some as Big Queens.
Introduce yourself.
YP to YG, you already know, South Jamaica, Queens, Sufton Bullies, 5 block on. We all in gang.
Okay, YP to YG. Are you related to YG?
No, not at all, not at all.
Before we talk about how he died, we have to sit with how he lived, because this man was chasing something real. Prince was born around 1988 and came up in the Jamaica section of South Jamaica, Queens, one of the most storied neighborhoods in all of hip-hop, and he wore those blocks like a badge. He dropped his debut album, Reloaded, back in 2019, and he built a small but loyal following, sitting at a little over 3,700 people on his Instagram, where he posted photos standing next to heavy hitters like 50 Cent and Nicki Minaj. He was never a household name, but he was out here putting in real work, dropping records on Spotify and Apple Music, and keeping his name breathing in the streets that raised him.
I'm two-stepping with my hammer on me. Act up, man, damn, that's a mandatory. See the flash of the cannon, no camera on me. Tell them apes and gorillas I got bananas on me. Back up on my...
The best way to understand YP is to hear the man talk about what music actually meant to him, because he did not treat it like a hobby or a quick check. Listen to how he described the fire that kept him going even when nothing was popping.
YP, what's the drive, man? What's the inspiration?
It's a passion. Even when you don't progress, some days you're gonna make progress, some days you don't. But it's the passion. And music is a passion for me. Some people is a hobby, some people is a job. To me, it's a passion, because when you don't have a job, you don't work. But when you have a passion, it's gonna always be there.
The love.
You see what I'm saying? The love for the music.
The
hunger is always there.
That passion is why he never really did it the plug way, where somebody hands you connections. YP told the story of how he built his network with his own 2 feet, running down on DJs and stars until they had no choice but to notice him. He talked about spending his own money on tickets just to get into a room with 50 Cent, and about how when he finally got close, 50 was the one who told him to come take the picture before YP even asked, because a man like that knows who is next. He talked about DJ Drew Ski being the first person to ever play his record on the radio, and about how the moment his song hit the airwaves, he thought his man was lying to him and hung up the phone. This was a grinder, a performer who said he jumps off the stage into the crowd because he refuses to just stand there and rap. Even the name YP to YG has a whole story behind it, and it goes back to a man he trusted named Chris, the mind behind the We All In brand. When they first met, YP was fresh home from jail and going by Killer Prince, and Chris looked at him and told him that was not it, that his name was going to be Young Prince, YP, tied to the YG crew that Chris was building. YP said that name stuck to him from the time he was 16 years old and never let go. And rap really was the thing that carried him through his worst days, because he first sharpened his skills battling for commissary money behind bars, doubling up his packages and betting on himself because he knew he was not going to lose.
We all in? Yeah, I bang for them niggas. This 5 block. You know they see flames in this nigga. While Peter YG, the head honcho, I roll up and smoke just like Fonto. Get it rocky like ASAP. That mean pronto. Nigga, I'm from the 5 block, raised by a poncho, huh? Bars.
Wow. I'm definitely hosting this mixtape.
His catalog grew over the years, from his album From a Prince to a King in 2021 to singles like Keepin' It Suffin' in 2024, records built on hustle, family, loyalty, and the grind of coming up in Queens.
He carried real pain in that music too. He had lost a childhood friend named Gregory Peterson, a man he had known since they were both babies, and when he wrote about that loss, he talked about 36 years of friendship gone in the blink of an eye. This was a man who understood how fast the people you love can be ripped away, which is what makes the way he went out so hard to sit with. But underneath all that hustle was a man who thought a lot about loyalty. And honestly, that theme runs through his whole story like a thread you cannot ignore once you see it. He sat in one interview and told a long story about taking a felony charge to protect a so-called friend, a dude who never even said thank you, a dude who took $100 off YP's cousin and never paid it back. And when he summed up how he moves through the world, he said something that hits completely different once you know how his life ended. Watch him explain what loyalty really means to him.
A nigga I fucked with that I thought was my nigga.
Yeah.
Thought was my good friend. He got into a situation over a female.
Uh-oh.
And the female was like, I was renting a room to her. And she was like, she was beefing with him at the time and was like, if you don't come get this gun out my house, I'm gonna give it to your PO. So he said, yo, YP, do me a favor. I said, what? Yo, go get the gun from this bitch before she called my PO, my nigga. So I take the gun, I wrap the gun up, I put the gun in the attic. This nigga catches into an argument with her other nigga. Because there's not nobody's girl. They're both just dealing with the girl.
Oh, my God.
He catches into an argument with her other nigga. Come to my house, yo, YP, I need a favor. What? Yo, come bring that downstairs. I come downstairs, I give it to him. He goes to the club. He shoots the nigga.
Oh, Lord.
Right? Listen to this shit. Listen. I can't make this up. He go to the club. He shoot the nigga. Right? He gets away. But somehow he drops the gun.
Oh, man.
So now when they do ballistics on the gun, guess who DNA is all over the gun? Mine.
What?
What do? They come get me for this. So they're asking me like, yo, we know this is not you because it happened at the club. We watching the cameras. They want me to tell them who that is. I didn't tell them who it was. They hit me with the charge. So I'm going to court. They offering me 5 years, 5 years, 5 years, 5 years. I said, that. I'm going to trial, nigga. Like, I'm not doing that again, nigga. I'm going to trial, nigga. The day of trial, they went from 5 years and said, McFarland, we'll offer you 3 years probation. I say, yo, give me time to think about it, right? So I called my shorty and was like, yo, they went from 5 years to probation. She said, that means they don't got nothing. My lawyer's like, go to trial. Let me tell you why I took the probation. I took the probation. I completed the probation, no violations, no nothing, right? I took the probation to do my nigga a favor, even though I'm clearly not his nigga. If I take the charge, they can't spin back and try to charge him. They went from felony possession to misdemeanor possession. Nah, give it to me. As long as it's not a felony,
oh, yeah.
I'll take it. So you drop the charge, you drop the time, I'll take it. My nigga just came home from jail from getting into some shit.
Yeah.
They would have smoked him. They'd have given football numbers. They'd have smoked him.
Oh,
hands down.
yeah.
They'd have smoked. He just did 5 years. They'd have smoked him. Hands down. They'd have smoked him. So I took the charge so they don't smoke him. And I never got a thank you.
Wow.
All right, Bobby Smurder.
Never got it. But I did it because I'm loyal.
Yeah.
Loyalty is an action, not a word. He lived by that. He took charges for people, he held his people down, and he expected the same energy back, even though he admitted plenty of times he did not get it. He even had a song about that exact feeling, a track he called his most personal work, and the way he described writing it tells you this was a man who understood loneliness even while he was surrounded by people. Listen to him open up about where that song came from.
Because I was going through some hard shit, and when I felt like I had people with me, and when you turn around, it was nobody there. And it was like, yo, damn, like, all I really got is me. Like, I don't have nobody. Like, I was going through at that time, bro, and that song is my most personal.
You was in your feelings when you made that song.
All
I got is me.
All I got is
Do
me.
that shit.
Myself already know. I had a talk with I was speaking from the soul. He said, please listen to me, because who else could you call? You know I'm always here when you're back against the wall. Like, for real.
Hey, okay.
I'm always here with my back against the wall.
All I really got is me.
Hold on to that, because the terrible irony of Prince McFarland's death is that the one time it truly mattered, the person standing across from him was not a stranger from another block, it was his own family. Away from the music, Prince had a whole other side to him. He had experience in real estate, he was married, and he was a father to daughters. And it was exactly that mix, family plus property plus money, that pulled him into the situation that took his life. His friends remembered him as a truly good dude who stayed humble, the kind of man the whole hood rocked with. The house at the center of all of this sits at 15518 on 116th Road in Jamaica, Queens, a small two-story home built back in 1920. It had been in the family a long time, purchased back in 2006 for $300,000 by a member of the McFarland family, and by the summer of 2025, it was listed for sale at $599,999. Think about that jump for a second. A home bought for $300,000 was now worth double that, with the market value climbing steadily year after year, and the property records showing it had appreciated to well over $600,000 by 2025. The listing had bounced around a bit that summer before it landed at that final asking price, and by the time everything went down, the sale had actually gone pending, meaning a buyer was locked in and the money was about to become real. That is the kind of jump in value that can turn family love into family war, and it did. Here's how the trust broke down. A relative of Prince's, a 41-year-old man, reported in some outlets as his nephew and in others as his cousin, controlled that family home. And because Prince knew real estate, that relative handed him power of attorney to run the sale. On its face, that's a smart move. You let the person in the family who knows the business handle the business. The age thing is strange, a nephew older than his uncle, but that happens in big families where the siblings are spread far apart in age. And the two of them had reportedly grown up together, which only made the whole thing more loaded. What should have been a clean deal turned into a slow-burning fight over one simple question: how do you split the money? That home was worth around $600,000, and the disagreement was about how those proceeds were going to be divided up. One relative, who lived in the basement, a 62-year-old uncle, later described it to reporters in the plainest way, calling it a disagreement over how the money was going to be split. There were no court battles on record, no long history of the two of them beefing in public. It was a private family thing, the kind of tension that stays behind closed doors right up until it explodes. That power of attorney is worth pausing on, because it is exactly the kind of arrangement that looks harmless and turns into a loaded gun. In New York, handing somebody power of attorney means you are trusting them to handle your property and your money in your best interest, and the whole system runs on that trust. When it works, it saves everybody time and stress. When it goes wrong, when one side feels the other is grabbing too much or moving in a way they never agreed to, it can breed a special kind of resentment, because now the fight is not just about money, it is about betrayal by the person you handed the keys to. Put that on top of a fast-changing neighborhood where property values have been shooting up for years, and two men who grew up together suddenly find themselves on opposite sides of a six-figure decision, and you have all the ingredients for something to snap. On October 3rd, 2025, it exploded. The first sign that anything was wrong came in the afternoon, and it came from the people who loved Prince the most. He failed to pick his daughter up from school, which was so far out of character that his wife started to panic. A man like Prince did not just forget his own daughter, so when he went quiet, she knew in her gut something was wrong. She tracked his phone and called the police for welfare checks, more than once, but the officers could not get inside without permission, so they left, and the hours kept ticking by, while Prince was somewhere in that house with the man he had grown up beside. That is the part that haunts you, the idea that help came to the door more than once and had to turn around and leave while a man's life hung in the balance on the other side of a wall. Late that night, at around 11:45, neighbors reported shots fired at the home on 116th Road. When the NYPD got there, they found Prince McFarland dead from a gunshot wound to the head, and the 41-year-old relative with a wound of his own. The relative was rushed to Jamaica Hospital, but he did not survive, dying from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. In plain words, one man shot the other over the money from a house they both grew up in, and then he turned the gun on himself and took his own life. The way the bodies were found tells you how quiet and how cold the whole thing was. The 62-year-old uncle who lived in the basement is the one who let Prince's wife into the home, and the two of them reportedly heard that final gunshot as they were on their way out. The shooter may have been sitting inside that house for hours after Prince was already gone. The NYPD recovered a handgun at the scene and ruled it a murder, followed by the shooter taking his own life, with no other suspects being sought. The saddest part is that Prince was still climbing when all of this happened. He was a working artist with plans, and in one of his last interviews, he was out here promoting new music like a man who fully expected to see tomorrow. Listen to him talk about what he had going on.
I'm YP, man. I'm from Sufton Boulevard. I got a single out right now called Two Steppin',
which is in rotation here.
I got the remix featuring Kaya Baby and Piff Montana.
For sure.
Baby. I got another song called Stolen Whip with DJ Magic right now. That's in rotation. I got a few things in the bag that's coming up a couple weeks from now, but I'm gonna let you know after we get off air
that's
what I got hidden in the bag.
Make sure we definitely get you up here to talk more about it. Definitely.
Think for a second about who was left standing in the wreckage of that night. A wife who spent her evening frantically tracking a phone and begging police to check on the father of her children, now a widow. Daughters who lost their dad, and a family that lost two of its own in a single moment because the man who pulled the trigger was blood too, somebody else's son, somebody else's people. That's the thing about these family killings. There's no clean side to grieve on. Everybody at that funeral is mourning somebody, and the whole bloodline gets split right down the middle by a fight that was only ever supposed to be about a piece of paper and a check. When the news of his death hit, tributes poured in across social media from friends and fans, people calling him a truly good dude and asking for prayers for his daughters. South Jamaica is a working-class neighborhood where property values have been climbing for years, and stories like this are a brutal reminder of how those rising numbers can turn a family home into a battleground.
Towers lies a neighborhood with stories that rarely make headlines. Since the 1960s, East New York has been one of the city's most violent areas, a place where lives have been lost, justice often feels out of reach, and scandals are everywhere.
They were financial crimes. Scams led to foreclosures, which led to abandoned buildings, which led to fires and vacant lots.
It was a lot of crime. It was a lot of drugs. It was a lot of abandoned buildings.
People were reluctant to speak with the police. There wasn't that great community relationship.
The problem hasn't been fixed. Everything that led to those crimes.
Here was a man who spent his whole career rapping about loyalty and about how all he really had was himself. And in the end, he was killed by the exact thing he trusted, family, over the exact thing that should never cost a life, a check from a house. Go back and listen to that first clip again, the one where he laughs about wanting to feel a bullet, and tell me it doesn't sit different now. Careful what you wish for, he said. He never could have known who would be the one to make it come true. Two families now, both torn apart from the inside, both over money that was supposed to make life easier, not end it. But our third story is a little different, because the person who ended this life was not blood at all. He was something that in some ways cuts even deeper, a man welcomed in as a friend. This last one hurts in a way that is hard to shake, because the young man at the center of it did everything right, and it still was not enough to save him. His name was Tevin Kamau, and a lot of people who loved him just called him Nguinho. Before we get into the night that took him, you need to know who this kid was, because he was pure light. Tevin was born on April 3rd, 2000, in Kenya, and he was a bright child from the jump, a genuinely gifted student. Back home, he scored high enough on his national primary exams to earn a spot at a respected boys' high school. The kind of achievement that makes a whole family proud and a whole village take notice. And community tributes remembered him as a kid who had real potential written all over him from a young age. Around 2018, he moved to Washington State with his mother, Veronica, and his younger brother, Baraka, and the family settled into the Lakewood and Federal Way area to start a new life. He put his head down and did the work,
graduating from Clover Park High School in 2020, then chasing more training in IT and finance while he worked jobs like cashier at Ross and valet. The kind of grind a young immigrant puts in when he is trying to build something from nothing. He was tight with his family and tight with his community. His aunt, a woman he lovingly called Auntie Maform, is especially close to him, and she is the one who would later carry so much of the weight of laying him to rest. His mother was working toward becoming a nurse, studying full-time, stretched thin, doing everything she could to give her boys a shot at a better life. This was a family that crossed an ocean together and leaned on each other for everything. And Tevin, as the oldest, saw it as his job to help hold it all up. Everybody who knew him described the same person, a warm, bubbly, loving young man who went out of his way to help people and had a real respect for folks both young and old. To his little brother, Baraka, he was more than a sibling. He was a father figure, the older brother who stepped up and led the way after they landed in a brand new country. He loved to dance, he had style and confidence, and he moved through the tight Kenyan community in the Puget Sound area like somebody people naturally gravitated toward. This is not a story about a kid who went looking for trouble. This is a story about a kind young man who trusted the wrong person one time. Now we have to talk about that person, because his name is PJ Langu. Watch the way this man carried himself just hours after everything, when the police finally had him.
Do you want to talk to me about what's going on today?
Nothing.
Nothing?
Just check me in. Shit.
Take you in for what?
Just check me in. I ain't got nothing to say.
All right.
That flat, tired, nothing-to-say energy was coming from a 19-year-old out of Pacific, Washington, a young man who already had 3 prior felony convictions on his record for second-degree assault, third-degree assault, and first-degree burglary. Those priors made him a person who was not even legally allowed to touch a gun. And it gets worse, because at the time all of this happened, he had recently run off from a youth rehabilitation facility where he was serving time for that burglary and assault. This was not some stranger who fell out of the sky. This was a young man already deep in the system, out on the run, carrying a weapon he was banned from having. Understand that a whole system had already failed this young man long before he ever crossed paths with Tevin. A 19-year-old with 3 violent felonies behind him should not have been out on the streets, should not have been able to get his hands on a firearm, and should not have been walking free at all. And yet there he was, on the run from the place that was supposed to be rehabilitating him, armed and loaded, showing up to a stranger's party. None of that excuses what he did, not for 1 second. But it does tell you that the danger was already stacked up and ready before the first drink was ever poured that night. The two of them were not old friends. According to the account Langi gave later, they had met only hours earlier at a gathering, and he first saw Tevin as a possible new friend. The night before had been a birthday party, a whole vibe that started off good, but Langi came into it in a bad state. By his own account in a later forensic assessment, he had been partying for something like 3 days straight with no sleep and no food, running on marijuana, several Percocets, alcohol, and hallucinogenic mushrooms. A man with that history, in that condition, holding a gun at a party full of people he did not know, is a tragedy waiting to happen. And the thing that set it off was almost nothing at all. It was ego. During the night, the group was drinking and talking, and at some point Tevin cut Langi off while he was speaking. That was it. That was the whole spark. Langi felt disrespected in front of everybody, and the birthday girl and her friends later told officers exactly what was in his head. Listen to how small the reason really was.
While speaking with the birthday girl Margaret and her friends, officers learned that PJ had decided to kill Tevin simply because he had hurt his ego by cutting him off during conversations.
We're all sitting getting shots, obviously.
Yeah.
Right? So we were all talking, and then like someone would interrupt him talking while he was talking, and he would get really butthurt about it.
Oh, just in general?
Yeah, in general. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he felt disrespected.
And so he was talking to a girl or just to the group?
No, just a group, but he
Okay.
felt disrespected.
Okay.
Right? It's like he felt disrespected.
And
so
Tevin interrupted him?
Yeah. Well, he was the one person who interrupted him then, but before it was like someone else interrupted him. Even though the girl told him I have a boyfriend, and the other girl was my girlfriend, but he still felt a level of disrespect.
And which girl was he trying to talk to? So he was getting real upset.
Yeah, he was getting butthurt because he felt like He was all like, we would hand the shots. I would hand him the bottle. He'd be like, let her hand the bottle. I'm like, all right.
Because he cut him off during conversations. A whole life gone over an interrupted sentence. The people at that party saw the danger before Tevin did. After the disturbance, Tevin asked Lange and a friend of his, a young man known only as Reaper who was getting around on crutches, to leave. By some accounts, a woman at the gathering remembered Lange having a gun and saying he would not be disrespected, and friends warned Tevin not to walk the two men out because Lange was clearly agitated and had been flashing that weapon. But Tevin was the kind of person who vouched for people, who believed the best in folks, who figured he could smooth things over with a handshake and a few calm words. He had even given Lange a fist bump earlier in the night when Lange promised he was there to have a good time and not cause problems. So Tevin insisted on stepping outside to talk to them like a man, to send them off in peace. That decision, that good-hearted, trusting decision, is the one that cost him everything. And it is the exact reason a story like this hits so hard, because he did not die doing anything wrong. He died being kind. The whole thing was caught on camera, which is the only reason we know exactly how it went down. A Ring camera at the Campus Green apartments recorded the entire sequence, and a true crime breakdown of the case laid out what that footage showed in painful detail. Watch how fast a friendly goodbye turned into a killing.
Captured on the Ring camera showed Tevin coming out of the house with the killer later identified as PJ, and another friend who was using crutches. As soon as they went up the stairs, PJ shot Tevin twice in the chest, for a reason that would soon be revealed.
Oh my God! Save me! Save me! Bro! Save me! Ah! Save me! I'm bleeding to death, bro. I'm about to die!
2 shots to the chest at point-blank range, with more wounds to the abdomen and the wrist. Tevin stumbled back to the door of that apartment, bleeding badly, crying out for help, and his friends came pouring out to try to save him, wrapping him up and doing everything they could while they waited for the medics. But too much time passed, and he had lost too much blood. He was rushed to Harborview Medical Center, where he was pronounced dead at around 12:24 in the afternoon on August 7, 2023. A young man who moved across the world to build a life was gone before lunch over a bruised ego. Lange did not make it far. Federal Way police caught up with him nearby not long after the shooting, and they found a handgun that matched the one in the footage right there in his backpack. He had already tried to change his look to slip away, ditching his red shirt and going shirtless, but it did not work. The local news put out the first details that same night, and even in those early hours, the picture was clear. What makes the arrest footage so hard to watch is the way Lange acted like none of it was a big deal. He was still coming down off of everything, incoherent, smelling of alcohol, falling asleep over and over during questioning, even rambling about Mormonism and Joseph Smith. And when they told him he was facing a murder charge, he was genuinely surprised because he thought it might just be an assault. While a young man lay dead, the person who did it was mostly worried about getting some sleep.
Can you guys take me in, bro, so I can sleep? I'm good though. Yeah.
Take you in so you sleep? You just tired?
I'm tired, bro. I know. Can you roll down my window at least?
Yeah.
I'm hot.
Okay,
Thank you,
gotcha.
There was even a witness who watched a piece of it happen and never saw it coming. A Lyft driver had been called to pick someone up near the apartments, and when he pulled in, he saw 3 men standing and talking. Then he heard the gunshots, saw one man run toward the apartment and the others come toward his car, and he locked his doors in a panic, terrified they might turn the gun on him next. He ended up letting Reaper, the man on crutches, into his car and dropping him off before quietly driving away and calling the police. Just an ordinary man on an ordinary shift who rolled up on a killing and had to talk his way out of the middle of it.
Did you call the police earlier?
Yeah.
Okay. What happened that caused you to call?
I went to the destination where I have to pick the person, and there was 3 guys that was talking standing. What I know last is one of them there was 3. One of them was running toward this apartment from them.
Towards the, okay, like away from where you were, running towards the apartment.
The apartment. Okay. I heard gunshot that time. The other guy, I locked the door right away because I can't go because I have to back up, I parked my car already. So they come to me, 2 of them, and when he tried to open the door, one of them, it was locked. He ran away the other side.
The case dragged on for more than 2 years. Langu was charged with second-degree murder and first-degree unlawful possession of a firearm. His bail was set at $5 million, and he pleaded not guilty at his arraignment before the delays started stacking up. In the end, there was no trial because on November 13, 2025, he pleaded guilty to both charges. At sentencing in January of 2026, his lawyer argued for leniency, leaning on his client's youth, his rough life experiences, and the drugs in his system, asking for something closer to 18.5 years. Prosecutors had pushed for more, something closer to 23 years once you added everything up, pointing to his priors and the cold way he carried himself. Because of that record, his standard range for the murder count alone ran from about 223 to 323 months, and a mandatory firearm enhancement was stacked on top. The judge landed on 240 months, which is 20 years, in the Washington State Department of Corrections. 20 years for a young man who was already living a life sentence of his own making, and no number of years was ever going to bring Tevin back. The most powerful voice in that courtroom belonged to Tevin's little brother. Margaret Kamau stood up and talked about the family leaving Kenya together in 2018, about how Tevin had been a father figure to him, and about a loss that can never be undone. He said he would never again get to tell his brother he loved him, or talk about their dreams, or sit at another family gathering the same way, and then he left the room with a line that says everything, that losing those moments is a pain he will carry for the rest of his life. The Kenyan community in Washington rallied around the family in a way that tells you exactly how loved this young man was. They held nightly prayer gatherings, streamed the services so folks across the diaspora could grieve together, and raised close to $9,000 from around 167 people so his mother would not have to carry the cost of burying her son alone. They called him their community's son, and they meant it.
My name is Blessings, and for me, how I met Tevin, it was back in 2018. I met him at church, Apostolic Faith.
I met Tevin when I was coming back from school. I used to live in Ohio. My friend introduced us. Venus and Mars, if y'all know, you know.
I met Tevin through Baraka, his younger brother. Tevin always took me to soccer practice and took me back home, so I appreciate him for all the stuff he used to do for me.
I met Tevin in 2017. I was at Sylvester's house, Siva. We call him Costado. We were working on cars, just chilling with the guys.
So I met Tevin when we were younger. It was at this church event thing. It was like a long time ago, but that's kind of where I met him.
I did not get a chance to say my last words to Tevin because I was supposed to call him that morning, and I got a call instead. I had a chance to see him, and I said to him that I love you, and that last word for me has really strengthened me.
I really loved his hair, so I would tell him that he has such good hair and he was really handsome.
If I had the chance to say something to him, I would say that he was a very memorable person and that he was the life of a party. And he was always able to make someone smile or just get out of their comfort.
Eventually, they laid him to rest at New Tacoma Cemetery, giving him the kind of send-off that matched the joy he lived with. At his burial, a pastor spoke a truth that fits every single one of these stories. Listen to it.
So Tevin is not here. This is the soil, the body. This is the house that Tevin used to live in. The real Tevin is gone. The real Tevin is gone. So we're just returning the soil the dust that composed Tevin to become a being, and God breathed his life into Tevin, so that life is gone back to the maker.
If you think what happened to Tevin was some one-time freak thing, it was not, and that is the scary part. This exact pattern keeps repeating in the same part of Washington. Take the case of Jose Calderon Luis, a 21-year-old from Federal Way who was shot at his own 21st birthday party in nearby Kent in June of 2025. The details will sound familiar because it was almost the same script. Uninvited guests showed up, they were asked to leave, an argument blew up into a physical fight, and shots were fired. Jose was hit in the torso, retreated into the home, collapsed, and died. A birthday, a request to leave, a wounded ego, a gun, and a young man in a coffin. And that is not even the only one. A few months earlier, a 17-year-old with his own record of assault and illegal gun possession opened fire at a packed house party of teenagers in Spanaway, killing 2 and wounding others. Same region, same recipe. Young people, a party, a dispute over respect, and somebody in the room who was never supposed to have a firearm in the first place.
Court Judge Joseph Evans refused to let our cameras capture the face of Isaiah Davion Williams. The teen, investigators say, shot and killed 2 people over the weekend. According to probable cause documents, Williams brought a gun to a house party in Spanaway. That party turned into a shootout on the street of a gated community, leaving bullet holes throughout the neighborhood. According to court documents, surveillance cameras captured everything. Investigators say that video shows Williams speaking with a group of people, then pulling out a gun and firing at point-blank range.
So look at these 3 stories side by side, because they are really one story told 3 ways. Margaret Craig was killed by her own daughter over a stolen pension and a phone call to a bank, then burned and cut into 67 pieces in the family home. Prince McFarland, our rapper YP to YG, was killed by a relative he grew up with over how to split the money from selling their family house, shot in the head moments after that deal fell apart. And Tevin Kamau was killed by a young man he welcomed as a friend over the smallest disrespect you could imagine at a party in his own building. Different weapons, different cities, different reasons on the surface, but the same rot underneath. Every single one of them was taken by someone they let close over money or ego in a place that was supposed to be safe. The lesson is not complicated, and it is not comfortable. The people who can hurt you the most are almost never the strangers. They are the ones already inside the door, the family at the dinner table, and the new friend you vouched for. Money and pride have ended more people than most enemies ever will, and none of it, not a house, not a check, not a bruised ego at a party, is worth a human life. Rest in peace to Margaret Craig, to Prince McFarland, and to Tevin Kamau. May the ones who loved them find some kind of peace. If somebody you know is caught in a fight over family money or property that keeps getting hotter, say something now before it turns into a story like one of these. A hard conversation today is a whole lot cheaper than a funeral tomorrow. Drop a comment if this reached you and share it with somebody who needs to hear it, because it just might be the thing that makes them pump the brakes.